Ah, welcome back to Captain Rook's story time. Here's my reading corner, and if you haven't watched the first video, you might want to go back and find it. But we've been reading Treasure Island, and now we're on Chapter 2. So get your warm drink ready and get comfortable. Chapter 2, The Black Dog. That winter was bitter and cold, with long, hard frosts and heavy winds. My poor father was so ill that we feared he would not live to see the spring. Every day he grew worse. My mother and I had our hands full with the inn, and we paid very little attention to our rough guest. One January morning, a frosty, grey morning, the captain got up quite early. He set out down the beach with his hat tilted back on his head. His sword was swinging under his old blue coat, and his brass telescope was under his arm. I remember that his breath hung in the air like smoke as he walked off. Mother was upstairs with father, and I was laying on the breakfast table. The parlor door opened, and a man stepped in I had never seen before. He was a pale, flabby man, missing 2 fingers on the left hand. He wore a short sword, but he did not look much like a fighter. I was on the lookout for seafaring men, with 1 leg or 2. And this one puzzled me. He did not look like a sailor, and yet he had a smack of the sea about him too. He sat down and asked for rum, but before I could go, he said, "Come here, sonny." I took a step nearer. "Is this here a table for my mate Bill?" he snarled. "I don't know a Bill," I said. "I'm setting the table for someone who goes by captain." "Does he have a cut on one cheek, on his right cheek?" "Ah, he has." "Well now, is my mate Bill in this here house now?" I told him he was out walking. "Which way, sonny? Which way is he gone?" I told him that the captain would return soon. "Ah," he said, "Bill will be very happy to see me." I did not think that this would be the case. But what could I do? The stranger kept hanging about like a cat, waiting for a mouse. Here he is talking to our lead character. "Ah, here's my old mate Bill now," he said after some time, with his spyglass under his arm. "You and me will just go back into the parlor, sonny. We'll give Bill a little surprise, we will." The stranger backed me into the parlor and hid behind the open door. I was very uneasy and alarmed, as you may imagine. The stranger had his hand on the hilt of his sword. At last, in walked the captain. He slammed the door behind him and marched straight across to the room to where his breakfast awaited him. "Bill," said the stranger in a bold voice. The captain spun round to face us, and he turned pale. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. I felt sorry to see him look so old and sick. "Come, Bill, you know me. You know an old shipmate, Bill, surely," said the stranger. The captain made a sort of gasp. "Black Dog." "And who else?" said the man. "Black Dog, come to see his old shipmate, Billy Bones, at the Admiral Benbow Inn. Ah, Bill, we've seen some times, us two, since I lost them 2 claws." He held up the hand missing the 2 fingers. I got 'em all, don't worry. "Look here," said the captain. "You've found me. Here I am. So speak up. What do you want?" "I'll have a glass of rum from this dear child here," said Black Dog, "and we'll sit and talk over old times." And here they be, having a friendly chat. I brought in their rum, and then retreated back into the parlor. I tried hard to listen in, but I heard only low mumbling. But at last the voices began to grow louder, and I could pick up a word or 2, mostly curses from the captain. "No, no, 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 and an end of it," he cried once. If it comes to hanging, hang all, I say." Then all of a sudden there were a lot of noise. The chair and the table went over, there was a clash of steel, and then a cry of pain. The next instant I saw Black Dog run from the inn. The captain was right behind him. Both men had their swords drawn, and Black Dog had blood running down his left shoulder. At the door, the captain lifted his sword for one final blow, but his sword hit our inn signboard, and there it stuck. You can see the notch on our sign to this day. That blow was the last of the battle. Black Dog disappeared over the hill in half a minute. The captain stood staring at the signboard like a confused man. He passed his hand over his eyes a few times, then he turned back into the house. "Jim," he said, "bring me rum." He staggered a little and fell against the wall. "Are you hurt?" I cried. "Rum," he repeated. "I must get away from here. Rum! Rum!" I ran to fetch it, but I was very shaken. Then I heard a loud fall in the parlor. I ran back in and found the captain lying on the floor. At the same instant my mother, who had heard all the noise, came running downstairs to help me. We raised his head. He was breathing very hard, but his eyes were closed. His face was a horrible color. "Oh dear," cried my mother, "what an awful thing to happen in our house, and your poor father stick upstairs." We had no idea what to do to help the captain. We were quite relieved when Dr. Livesey came in on his visit to my father. "Oh, doctor," we cried, "what shall we do? Where is he wounded?" "Wounded? Fiddlesticks," said the doctor. "He's not wounded. This man has had a stroke, just as I warned him. Now, Mrs. Hawkins, go back upstairs to your husband, but don't tell him anything about this. I'll do my best to save this fellow's worthless life." The doctor ripped up the captain's sleeve to check his veins. The captain's arm was tattooed in several places. After a bit, the captain opened his eyes and looked about him. First he recognized the doctor and gave him a frown. Then he looked at me. He tried to raise himself, crying, "Where's Black Dog?" "There is no Black Dog here," said the doctor. "You have had a stroke, just as I warned you. Come now, I'll help you to your bed." We managed to help him upstairs, and we laid him on his bed. There he is, when Livesey came in. "Now listen to me," said the doctor. "If you do keep drinking rum, you'll die. Do you understand that? Die." And with that he went off to see my father, taking me with him by the arm. "He should lie for a week where he is," he told me. "That is the best thing for him and you, but another stroke will kill him." And with that lovely ending, there ends chapter 2. I'll be seeing you next time. Chapter 3 is soon to come.